Hello and welcome to the Headless Hammerhead Guide to Comic Books. Today we have a very special treat. It's an exclusive review of the Marvel Multiverse role-playing game, the full core rulebook. So we're not going to waste any time. We're going to get right to it. First, the book itself. It's a beautiful book. The colors are so bright, brighter than most comic books even. I think the ink that they use on this is top-notch. It's really eye-catching. The artwork is fantastic. And I think this is going to fly off the shelves just on the look of the book itself. It is really appealing to the eye, and I think that it's going to grab the attention of many players from all ages, young and old, because it's not childish art, it's mature art, but it's also bright and colorful that children would like as well. And this game, you'll see in a little bit, is appropriate for people of all ages, even younger ones. The feel of the cover itself, it's a matte finish. It's not that felt touch, but it's matte, so it's not that high gloss that you see in a lot of core rule books for a lot of role-playing games. It feels really nice to the touch. It's soft, and just overall, the experience when you pick up this book, from the visuals to the feel, it's just great. So it feels really nice, but also it's got a good weight to it. And the interior pages, they're not cheap, thin material like some of the Marvel comics that you see nowadays. They use really cheap page paper. But this has a really good thickness to it, even the cardstock cover as well. So let's get into the interior. You'll see, of course, it's got the table contents, everything standard, how to play, everything. It runs 320 pages in total, so it is very, very large, and it could be a little overwhelming at first glance. But if you really look at it, once you open it up and flip through it, you're going to notice that the half of the book is actually character sheets for the pre-generated characters. If you see that red bar there, that red section, that is actually all pre-generated existing Marvel Comics characters that you can play, and this includes villains and heroes as well. So you see this entire huge section. I think it's over 125 different pages of just characters, so that takes up a good chunk of the book itself. So don't be intimidated when you pick it up. You think it's this huge 320 page book that I got to read and learn a billion rules. It is not like that at all, and you're going to see what I mean in just a moment. You'll see the chapters themselves are pretty short in general, because the rules really are very simple. The game is very easy to pick up and play in just a matter of minutes, and you're going to understand in just a moment. So it begins, of course, with the how to play a role-playing game in general, addresses some current issues with role-playing. Then it gets into the core mechanics of the game. This explains the D616 method, which is the method they use for their dice rolls. And you'll see, look how short this is. This is only a couple of pages to explain the D616 method, where basically you're using 3 6-sided dice. It is, instead of using anywhere from a dice 4 to a dice 20, dice 100 that you see in many other role-playing games, this simplifies it into just 3 standard 6-sided dice that you will be rolling, and they call this the D616 method because there are 3. You would have 2 of one color and 1 of a different color, preferably, which is the Marvel dice. And once you read the rules, you understand why you need to have 1 of a different color. You continue and you'll see the character profiles. This explains how to flesh out your character. So it explains the basics of character generation, from their height, weight, hair color, their build, their background, origin, things like that, whether they have a secret identity, things like that. And it also goes into certain other aspects of a character, like their health, karma, some of their key metrics that are going to help you during the game itself. Then you have the first sample character sheet, which is Spider-Man, the Peter Parker version, and it shows you what a completed character sheet should look like. Of course, there's the core stats, and then you have your powers and other abilities as well on the sheet. We get into the next chapter, which is combat, and the combat is very simple. I love that because it's a D616 method, they were able to do something where your dice roll, you only roll once to hit, and for damage. It's all included in that one roll, and it makes it so simple, and there's not a lot of math involved. There's some math, but it's not overly complicated where even a kid could actually do it. It makes it very simple. The combat, it's the focus of this game is mostly on role-playing and simplicity. So you're going to see that this doesn't bog you down with a lot of rules, a lot of technical information as other role-playing games may do. Now you're going to see here that there are some charts with some information, and these, we'll talk about it later. I wish these were all consolidated, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. Then, of course, you get into creating a character. What role-playing game would be fun if you can't make your own character, right? Although this is the Marvel Universe, you're going to want to sometimes use maybe a character that you love from the comics or from the movies or from a TV show, a video game, etc., where you may want to play Wolverine. So you can do that, but I think it's a lot more fun to flesh out a character of your own, something unique to be the next big thing. And this allows you the opportunity to do that. And it gives you a lot of leeway on fleshing out this character to make them truly unique. And I think that based on different things like traits and tags and powers themselves, it allows you to create really unique characters even if they have the same power sets as others. A lot of this goes in through the backstories. So, of course, you're not going to have a comic book character without a good, solid backstory. This is what makes it a Marvel character. Most of these characters, it's not their powers. It's not Spider-Man's ability to swing along between buildings that makes Spider-Man unique. It's the fact that he had his Uncle Ben, that he has Aunt May, that he has a job, from pizza delivery to being a reporter. All of these things are what makes this character interesting, that what makes people relate to him, and this allows you to do all of that. Now, when it comes to the powers, they do have a ton of powers. I think over 100 powers, and these, it can get really complicated. Some of these are very specific in what they do. Not very general. For example, a shield ricochet from one person to another, things like that. But they are grouped into power sets, which makes it really easy to flesh out a character that makes sense. If you have a specific power, say you're a shield bearer, and you have the ability to block with the shield, then it also allows you a shield throw as another power and things like that. Because of this, sometimes a narrow-minded player may think that they're locked into a box to create another version of Captain America, but it doesn't really limit you in that way, because if you're very creative, you can use say for example, if you're a shield bearer, you can change that into something else that's similar to a shield, just falls under the shield bearer power. So you're going to see that the descriptions for the powers are very simple. They're very concise and generic, and that because it allows you to add your own flavor to each one of these powers. You'll see some that are very similar in their descriptions. For example, you're going to see Clobber and Shield Bash have the exact same description. It's all about the flavor that you use with them. So power like Fast Strikes can be tailored to somebody from just bites to scratches to somebody with an umbrella, and they spin the umbrella around, it hits a bunch of people, and you can even use the same umbrella to create a blur effect with the umbrella as well. Some powers have a lot of prerequisites as far as your rank and other powers to have as prerequisites for subsequent powers, things like that. But overall, I think it works very well. You're going to see these characters, they have a huge amount of powers because they fall into these power sets, like for example the spider powers, and you'll see it could be overwhelming if you look at it in that way, but when you really see that a lot of these powers are just specific uses of a general power. For example, webbing has a lot of powers listed under it that are really just stunts using the web. And you see here is the ever popular Wolverine. They are going to have an expansion with the X-Men, and I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of powers included in that as well. So we continue here, and you're going to see that it discusses the Marvel Multiverse. So of course there are different versions of the Marvel Universe, and this goes into detail on all of it, from the different Earth 616, Earth 65, things like that, the Ultimate Universe. And of course it discusses things from multiversal travel to time travel as well, doing your campaign in a specific time period, and all of that is addressed, and I think it's a very good thing as well. Then there's the narrator section, and that delves into the back end of things for things such as dealing with time travel. That's such a big thing that could really mess up a lot of things in a game, and this addresses it very well. I personally hate time travel in stories because they never really address it in the proper way. This really explains how time travel works in the Marvel Multiverse and why it's really easy to deal with within this game because of how it works in the Marvel Multiverse. So it really, I think, takes a lot of the problems out of the equation here. This allows you also to create your own powers, including unique powers. It has an example there of an X-Men or a mutant who has a unique, really unique power. Then, of course, working with ranks, teams with different ranks, like the Avengers, things like that. And of course, they address killing characters. This isn't addressed in a lot of other role-playing games, but this addresses it really well, especially a total party kill, or the wipeout as they call it here. And what a player can do if their character dies, what they can do in the meantime while they wait for the character to either be resurrected or create a new character, etc. Then it continues on into playing, of course, in the multiverse and game styles. This is really cool because you know that the flavor of the campaign really falls into what kind of game style you have. So whether do you want to have an action-packed type of superhero adventure? Do you want it to be funny, like a lot of cartoons? Do you want it to be a type of mystery adventure, romance, or something gritty like a noir, or even a horror adventure like Marvel Zombies, or just a mix? So it's pretty cool. Now, heroes can earn karma, which gives them the ability to do certain special things with their powers during fights, etc. Villains can earn karma as well. That gives them a boost during battles and even during other social interactions. And they do this by doing heroic deeds just like heroes, but also by monologuing. And they leave this for last, and I think it's really neat that they did this because this gives you the incentive to make your villains really comic book like, where they monologue right before, when they have all the characters, all the players tied up and in a death trap, and the villain monologues his plans or his history, and it really adds a lot of flavor and makes it very comic book like. I love it. Overall, I think this is a very positive game. It takes elements of Dungeons and Dragons, Pathfinder 2nd Edition, and the Alien role-playing game, and takes some of the best aspects of each of those and puts them together into a very concise, very easy to learn, simple game that focuses on the role-playing aspects of the game. It doesn't weigh you down with a lot of roles, a lot of technical aspects. For example, they don't even mention money, how that works in the game. They don't mention vehicles, give you rules for running vehicles and crashing into things, etc. That's all left up to your role-playing for the narrator and for the players to make it more cinematic. And that's, I think, the goal of this game, to make it fun, cinematic, a really enjoyable time that's more narrative in scope than it is technical in scope. So I think that it really handles a lot of the things in a very positive way. I think it's going to be a very popular game because it's so easy to learn and so simple and so fun. Now, there are some opportunities. For example, there are large charts throughout the game for gameplay, and I understand they don't want to bog you down with a lot of the technical aspects of it, but and they're probably gearing up to create a DM screen or narrator screen that they can sell you, but some of this would really be handy to have all in one page as a reference, so that it doesn't slow gameplay down trying to find a page where all of this information is. Another element that I thought was really neat in the old 90s Marvel role-playing game is the randomization tables. You could totally randomize a character from their origin to their whatever their powers are, of course, their skill sets. Everything could be totally randomized, and I think that's missing from this one. I think that because there are so many powers listed in here, it could be overwhelming for some people, and it may stifle their creativity a little bit, and randomization table would really fix that quite a bit. Another element from the old Marvel game from the 90s that I loved was the feat rolls, power feats, where you were able to use karma to use, for example, if you're a shield thrower like Captain America, and you can do a feat that normally you wouldn't be able to do, and makes it very comic book like. For example, you're in a crowd with a child next to you and somebody's firing a machine gun in your general direction. You want to save the kid. You can take a rope and tie it to the kid and to the shield, throw the shield, and have the shield carry the kid all the way up to the roof of a nearby building, for example. And this is something that in real life, of course, would be ludicrous, but in a comic book, it might happen. And this is something that would have been called a power feat, and you'd be able to do it using karma, and then you do it enough times, it becomes part of your power set. I think something like this would be cool to have in this Marvel Multiverse role-playing game as well. Another thing missing from this book is a sample adventure. I think it would have been nice with a $60 price tag for this book to include at least a very brief adventure, even if it's a 1-2 page adventure to help you get things going, and for new players, especially for the new narrators, to learn how to run an adventure in a basic way. And the only other opportunity I see here with this system is the restrictive tags and traits, such as convict or cursed or even dependents, where you could have like an Aunt May or even a child. I think these things restrict your character significantly, even something like a weakness to a specific material. But here they're used only for flavor for your character, and they could really significantly affect your character during the game, and you gain no other benefit other than flavor for your character. Whereas in prior versions, in the 90s version, for example, I keep comparing it to, you would get a benefit or a boost to one of your existing powers if you took a restriction like this. So overall, I think this is a very successful role-playing game. It's going to help people to get into role-playing. It's going to help people to get into Marvel comics and characters and things like that, because it's so simple to pick up and learn. It doesn't bog you down with a lot of rules, a lot of technicalities, and it really leaves a lot of room for you to have fun. And that's the whole point of a role-playing game. And a lot of the games out there have forgotten that. Some of them get so complicated with rules, and then you have the rules lawyers. Here, it leaves all of that out and gives you so much room to just have fun and act out a story. And that's the whole point of it, to make a story, to make it like a comic book. In fact, they even call the games themselves, instead of a one-shot, it's called a single issue. Instead of a short campaign that's 5 sessions, they call it a trade paperback. And an open-ended campaign is called an ongoing series. So it makes it very comic book oriented, and it's exactly the lighthearted kind of fun that you'd expect from a Marvel role-playing game. I think it's really neat. It leaves a lot of things open for your interpretation and to make it your own. A lot of homebrew content is going to be created here. And of course, there's going to be a lot of expansions, supplements, things like that. But I highly, highly, highly recommend, I very much absolutely recommend you get this and try it out. If you've never played a role-playing game, this is the place to start for sure. You may not even want to move on from this because it's, I think, so neat and really creates a positive experience in your day when you play this. I think this is going to be great for a lot of people. And thus ends another edition of the Headless Hammerhead Guide to Comic Books. This has been a special edition, a review of the Marvel Multiverse role-playing game Core Rulebook. I think that this has been a great experience reading this. Playing this is going to be awesome. And I hope you got a lot out of it. I hope it has inspired you to go out and get a copy as well. I was not compensated for this at all. I had to buy the book myself. And of course, read through it. And I think this is, as a gamer myself of other role-playing games, this is one of the better ones for sure. Please be sure to click the thumbs up, like, subscribe, leave a comment, hit that notification bell. I really appreciate the support. Our channel is very young still, but I think with your support, we can grow to be something great, and I can continue doing more of these reviews and more informational videos about comic books. Send me your questions. I love getting emails and comments. And remember,
we don't fight here.